It's Wednesday, and we've got another edition of Speed Chronicles here on the RevTV YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in again this week at RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports, the socials, X and Instagram for comments, feedback, questions, thoughts, ideas on how we go forward with this fun little project that we've been doing since the beginning of the summer. Just kind of a review of what's gone on in the world of motorsports and racing, business, not super results oriented if you haven't checked it out yet, but we just kind of talk about stories, give some thoughts, give some ideas. And as mentioned, we love some ideas and thoughts and feedback on that as well. Rain wreaked havoc with schedules in Ontario this past week. So there was not a lot of racing, including the NASCAR Canada series that was supposed to go at Delaware Speedway. So that's been bumped down a few weeks. They'll go again this weekend in Quebec at Circuit IndyCar, which is always an interesting and fun event too. We did get some action at NASCAR in Michigan, and we did get IndyCar returning to action at the Oval at Worldwide Technology Raceway, or Gateway. I always call it Gateway because that's what it was originally called. And there's been so much stories and drama. I have seen this on social media a couple of times, and I thought it when they announced the behind the scenes series of 100 days to Indy. I think that you got to do an IndyCar series about the whole season and the drama that's involved with all of the driver shuffling and moves that have taken place and all the drama that's taken place in the races, including at St. Louis this past weekend, where Josef Newgarden won, but nobody was really happy about it at the time. Well, the Josef Newgarden fans were, Team Penske was pretty happy about it, I'm pretty sure. They didn't like all that went on. So now that we've had a couple of days to think about it and relax and decompress, and willpower has calmed down just a little bit, we can assess really what happened. So according to all the data, which is pretty extensive, there's great telemetry between the Indy cars and the teams, and that data is all accessible afterwards. Josef Newgarden did maintain speed on that restart that caused so much difficulty. 80 miles per hour. He went very late. There is a restart zone. He went right at the end of it. The green light you could see came on just before he accelerated because he was right at the end of the restart zone. There was nothing wrong with that. It screwed everyone up because restarts had been taking place earlier in the restart zone prior to Josef waiting until the last possible second, which is the whole idea. You want to unsettle your competition so that you get a better restart. That's why the leader has control of the race. Oh my goodness, the nonsense that went on. I appreciate Will's frustration. I totally get it that he's upset. And did he slow a mile or two per hour going through corners 3 and 4? Yeah, maybe. But that's certainly well within the margin of error. He did not slow by 20% and do it multiple times. It was an even speed. Just watch, and you'll see that did not take place. Yes, can you drag the brake? Yes, but you get that telemetry. He maintained a constant speed. So Will was upset about getting plowed from behind, and understandably so. When you're 6, 7, 8, 9 cars deep in a single file restart, you can't see the front of the field. You can't see what's happening up in front of you beyond that car that is directly ahead of you. And you want to be as close as possible because restarts are the best opportunity to gain positions. So everybody's hyped up and anticipating the start. And especially with this one that is so late in the race that you're going to be your final opportunity likely to gain a position or 2 or 3. So you're anticipating that. And when the leader waits until the last possible second, sometimes bad things happen. That's what Alexander Rossi was doing. Clearly, he was anticipating the restart, got it wrong, got into the back of the car ahead of him. Calamity ensues. Will was also upset at David Malukas, but apparently upon further review and looking at the video said, yeah, you're right. I did pinch him down, which was the case. And there were a few folks that were kind of upset at Will who had some rather graphic language to the pit reporter, Dylan Welch, who asked him for an interview. I've been yelled at by drivers before. And I can understand that when you've been knocked out of the race and it doesn't go your way and you're pissed off and frustrated, that you're going to say something that is not particularly kind when somebody like me, or in this case, Dylan Welch, asks for an interview. I've been yelled at by drivers before. It happens. I don't take it personally, and we can talk about it after, and everything's fine. It's no big deal. I don't know the conversation that took place. Obviously, it was very soon after the wreck. I personally will try to give drivers a second or two to collect themselves and calm down before I get in their face and jump on them. It's how you approach it sometimes, but I've got no problem with Will barking at him. He did immediately reverse himself and give a very good interview afterwards. That's fine. It happens. It's adrenaline. It's heat of the moment. It's really not a big deal. So that was the drama at IndyCar, and they're going again this weekend at Portland. And with that carousel at the front, inevitably there's going to be somebody that gets into someone else. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this sort of stuff again next week. NASCAR did run at Michigan. In fact, it was an extended weekend because the Cup Series race didn't start till late and didn't get finished because of weather. I kind of like this occasionally. I don't mind finishing a race on Monday because, you're just kind of start of the week and got some things to do. It's like, hey, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. I can just pop the race on and I can enjoy that for an hour or two and finish up the weekend. I don't mind it occasionally. It's terrible for teams with the screwing up their schedules, but it's kind of a nice little thing to have a midday Monday finish to the race. Let's talk a bit about the schedule because NASCAR goes to Daytona this week. It's August. They're going to Daytona this week. Bristol is in September. I'm one for continuity of schedule, date equity. Bristol night race is always last weekend in August. That's where it belongs. Daytona, second race, starts the unofficial second half of the season at the beginning of July on the July 4th weekend. That's when the Daytona race should be running. This shuffling of dates, I understand sometimes. These couple, those should be staples and part of the fiber of the schedule. Oh, did you see the apparently leaked schedule for NASCAR Cup Series, by the way? Apparently it's not 100% done, 100% official. And I can understand that because they're not ready to make the announcement yet, but Mexico City was on it in June. So we'll see what that happens. Oh, I also noticed a comment from Chase Elliott, who was doing a feature with Jeff Gluck from The Athletic, the 12 questions thing. And one of the things he suggested is shortening up the schedule. Not necessarily fewer races, but shortening up the schedule so that it doesn't go as deep into the fall, which I thought was really interesting. So that's going to mean maybe midweek races. Do you do doubleheader weekends? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you make that happen. But his thought was maybe going up against the NFL isn't the best thing in the fall. And it's hard to disagree with that because there are other series that don't really like to go up against the NFL either. IndyCar. It does make some sense. It's such a powerhouse in terms of television, but it's going to be interesting. Maybe that'll be part of charter discussions going forward, which again, for both IndyCar and NASCAR, aren't really getting anywhere. I guess they're making progress. I'll be cautiously optimistic that they will get done in a reasonable amount of time, but until it's done, it's not done. And there's some disputes about how the money and the finances are going to be divided up for both of those series. So going to be interesting to see how they play out and see how the final wording is and what it does to affect the teams and their sponsorship and all the rest of it. I mentioned that NASCAR was unable to race last week at Delaware. They canceled it early, which was right because the weather forecast was lousy for the whole weekend. So they bump it down the road a couple of weeks to September the 8th, a Sunday, which is interesting because that's all part of the Great Canadian Weekend and the championship weekend that Delaware has going. Again, you hope that the weather is going to be okay there and it's not going to interfere with the schedule because that's going to cause real problems if it does. NASCAR Canada at ICAR this week. Shorter course, shorter race this year. Only at the Everum 100 as opposed to 125. So it's not going to be a fuel mileage race this year. I think it's going to be really interesting. We should have a good field of cars and looking forward to being there and enjoying that. Formula One returns this weekend after their summer hiatus as well. And I think everybody's kind of excited about it and anticipating a pretty good championship battle towards the end of the season. I don't know that anybody's overtaking Max, but I think the Constructors' Championship is going to end up with a lot of shuffling. There's still some driver lineups to be sorted out and solidified with Formula One, so there's going to be a lot of news. And I think it's good. I think having a little break. It's weird to take a month off in the middle of the season, but Formula One's done it for a while. It's just part of the fabric now, and it's sort of expected. And I think it helps rejuvenate and recharge the teams as well. You've got to give people breaks and a chance to recover and get back going. So excited to see a full weekend of activity, be part of it at Circuit ICAR for the NASCAR Canada Series and much more. So thanks for checking out this week's edition of Speed Chronicles. Oh, there's one more. Sorry, I forgot. There's one other story I wanted to touch on. And that is Treyten Lapcevich, the former NASCAR Canada champion, had his Cars Tour win restored by the appeals process. Of course, won a couple of weeks ago, got DQ'd 3 days later, appealed it, didn't agree with the decision. So they got the win restored. They don't get the championship points and they don't get the money. From what I've been able to decipher is that they did run an illegal rear end part, but the rules didn't specifically say they could not run that part. Okay, you're slicing pretty thin at that point. I'll give you that. But there's a way to fix that in terms of the rules, and the Cars Tour Brain Trust have said is yes, this is part of our process. We need to clean up the rule book, and they've been trying to do that, and I understand that, and I'm pretty sure that that'll be sorted out in the next little while. This is kind of a compromise solution. Treyten gets to keep the win, but he doesn't get any money or championship points. I don't know if he was going to be able to claim the title. He certainly isn't going to be able to win a championship. Unlikely, very unlikely now, with only a few rounds remaining and not that many races left. But it's sort of a compromise solution. It moves it along. It points that there were definite breakdowns in the inspection process. You've got to know the rule book better than anybody if you're the one enforcing it, because every crew chief and every team in that series is reading it line by line, looking for an opportunity to take advantage of it. So if you're writing it, you got to know it and you got to enforce it better than anybody else in the series. And clearly there were breakdowns in the Cars Tour. So we'll see how that gets sorted out. But hey, nice for Treyten. He's been close a couple times, gets the victory. Doesn't get all the credit in terms of the money and the championship points, but he does get to keep the victory. So again, thanks for checking out this week's edition of Speed Chronicles. We'll do it again next Wednesday. New edition of Rev Culture is coming up as well on Monday, August the 26th. And we'll have a little NASCAR international talk with Chad Siegler as part of that episode. Thanks for joining us. Do it again next week.